Hello, it's Andy and welcome back. I'm about to do something a little bit special this time. So that's my village and I'm not too far from it. I've just started this little walk stroke hike. Now you can hear farm machinery. It's everything in the countryside's beginning to come to life, harvesting. But the field in front of me has got dandelions and daisies growing in amongst the grass, and the grass is beginning to get quite tall. This will be harvested for silage or hay. Now in a few weeks time that will probably be ready to make the first cut, but for us, like I said, we're going to do something a little bit special. My village sits on top of a, should we say, shallow hill which rolls down into a valley, and then if you climb out the opposite side you can make your way to the high ground. And you can see that in the distance as I gently pan around. It may not look high here, but when you get up there, there are some spectacular views. And as I pan around, you can see as far as the Tor of Birator. But for us, as I zoom in, you might just be able to see a very pointed granite outcrop. That has the name of Sharp Tor. It's been described as a miniature mountain, believe it or not. We are heading there. In advance, I will apologise for any wind noise. That's quite simply a fault of my own actually. This morning it was bright blue skies, not a hint of wind, but I cracked on with some jobs at home, like you do, and I'm coming out for a hike now. Although spectacular conditions for myself, as I'm not going to be getting too hot, there will possibly be a little wind noise. If not here, there definitely will be up on the high ground, so I'm making an advanced apology. But if you're where you're looking to now, if you were to follow that for roughly a mile, you'd end up in my village. I'm giving you the lay of the land so you can roughly see where we're heading and what we're doing. So if I pan around, you're basically looking at the top of the hill, shall I say, or plateau, before you start dropping down into the valley. And as you can see, as I gently pan around, you are basically heading down. There's some rolling hills, but minor, shall we say, ascents before you drop back down again. You are, in all intents and purposes, just heading down. And I will try to zoom up a fraction if we can do that. I'm not sure if I can. Yes, we can. You can see Sharp Tor there in the distance. With those grey clouds behind it, it is looking quite ominous. But if you look over the Kilmar Tor and 12 Manta Moor over there, that's got a lot of clouds hanging over it in shadows. That also looks pretty ominous, but we won't be going that far today. Just Sharp Tor. And that's enough in my book. Today I've chosen to do this pretty much all through the quiet country lanes. There is a reason for that. I'm basically doing this mid-afternoon. If I've got the time and we're a little bit further into summer, I can link up a lot of footpaths and pretty much eradicate most of this lane walking. But for today it's just convenience and time saving, but it's still extremely pleasant in the lanes. So equipment wise, I've just got like a running top which allows sweat to evaporate, because I will be doing some uphills, a lot of uphills actually, in both directions once I get down into the valley. I do have a hiking stick on my own. I'm carrying a granddad's pocket knife should I come across a stick that needs liberating and taking home and making into one of my fantastic hiking sticks. I do have a litre of juice, some snacks, and some old military combats, because they're lightweight, they're breathable, they don't pull or snag, and quite honestly they're cheap. And here comes the sun again, so I'm going to be getting hot, so I'm fully equipped to do a 12 to 14 mile expedition in an area that I know reasonably well. This little structure is where milk churns would have been placed by the farmer after milking, and the local dairy would come and pick them up and drop off some empty ones. This was extremely hard work in both ends for the farmer, and on top of that for the people in the dairy. I worked in the dairy many years as a young man and had the pleasure to talk to some of the very older guys before their retirement. And they actually had to manhandle milk churns with milk and tip them into the vats to be processed into the products for the general public. It was extremely hard work, and you know, in today's society where milk tankers float around the lanes picking up shall we say the milk, we often forget how it used to be. But if you see structures like this dotted around, they were stands for the dairies to pick up the milk from the farmer. So it's now becoming a bit of a feature for me on the horizon. Pretty much the main feature. Obviously I'm heading in that direction, and as you can see, instead of it being level, I'm beginning to go down under it. I've climbed several small hills, but I am, in intents and purposes, every time I climb out of a hill, it's never quite as far as how I went down. So in effect, I'm losing height, so I shall soon be completely underneath it. There is one of the public footpaths that I do take if I'm doing this and I have the time, and as you can imagine, that is a beautiful walk through the countryside, and I can achieve most of where I'm going to via those pathways or ancient paths, and it would take you in through here. And as you can see now in the distance, Sharp Tor. But also if you look up this lane, you can start to see some dwellings. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of history about this place. So this set of dwellings just down this road, there's one of them that has the name of But in its very last part of its name to the property. Now that is reference to the fact that many years ago it was a local range, not for firearms, although if you've had any dealings in the military or with modern firearms on a shooting range, the butts is the end where the targets and all that can be found. The butt that we're going to be talking about is from the days of the English longbow, and that name with the property with butt on the very end, local historians have surmised, and with artifacts of arrowheads being found, this was an area that young men and boys would meet on a Sunday for a few hours by law, and it was by law, to practice the art of archery with the English longbow. So here, where we are now, men and boys from all over the parish would meet in preparation to ready themselves to go to war for our country. That old oak tree against the dark, should we say menacing rain clouds is looking absolutely stunning with all its new leaves just coming out. The leaves are still small, but they're yet to reach full size, but what a contrast. That is looking absolutely stunning. There she goes, that deer. See it going through the hedge down the bottom? Look at that. That looks like a Canadian goose down there in the actual grass there, just sticking its head up. Kind of think they should be heading off somewhere a little bit cooler. I'm not quite sure what it's doing here. So I've now reached the lowest point of my, shall we say, hike here. This is the river, and as I've just said, it's the lowest point. From here on in, I'm heading all uphill, and there's going to be parts that are going to be extremely steep, and I'm going to be sweating. So I'm making my way up the lane, and I've just stopped here in a gateway to catch my breath, and there's a group of horses just lazily eating from their feeder, and I think for them they would actually run up this hill that I'm going up, but they've no need, and as you can see it's just another gentle day here, although you can possibly see by the leaves and the actual twigs the wind is really picking up, and those clouds, some of them are grey. I've possibly misjudged this particular hike, but we are where we are, and I'm going to carry on heading uphill. I've just come up that lane. You can take that road towards Lanson, this one towards Liscard, but I'm going to be going in through here into a public footpath and into a woodland. So I'm now actually on the footpath, and I'm heading into the woodland. This will bring me out to another little village called Henwood, and that sits directly underneath Sharp-Tor. I've just spoken to an elderly gentleman I always seem to bump into in his garden while I'm doing this path, and it's always pleasant to have a little chat with him. But I do have to make my way forward now. I'm in the woods and I'm surrounded by bird song yet again. It's still, there's no wind, and it's extremely pleasant. But just looking at those clouds, and from what the gentleman confirmed, I'm possibly not going to be lucky when we start our ascent up to Sharp-Tor. And let's be poetic and say ascent. I know it's a tour, we're in Cornwall, we're not in the Alps, but yeah, let's just be generous and call it the ascent. There is enough light coming through the actual canopy here, which has new fresh leaves. They've already come out in pretty much a week. We still have a lot of the winter leaves here. They will mulch down and be gone by autumn, but it is a contrast. You can see the leftovers from winter, but those brand new leaves, and they are looking really translucent. So yeah, it's a really beautiful time to be in the actual woodland here. There's a sty I do have to make my way over. Yet again, it's clearly marked, and because this path is fenced, you're in no danger of getting lost or straying to somewhere you shouldn't. I can see a clump of bluebells just over here. Obviously that's in somebody's private part of the wood. As you can see, it's fenced off, but yeah, there's a nice little sea of them. They're not the most vibrant bluebells, but I think that's probably because they're a bit shaded here. But yeah, nevertheless, they do look beautiful. You can probably tell I've picked up the pace. It's my own fault, I have misjudged this, but yet again, it serves as a little bit of a warning that you should always be prepared if you're going to go out onto, shall we say, exposed high ground. So yeah, always go prepared, but it doesn't stop me from sort of like thinking, come on, let's get a shifty on, get to the top of this tour, and you know, touch the top stone, you know, and then turn tail and make it off the high ground before this weather does turn bad, if it's going to. I don't think there's a weather forecast for it to turn really bad, but it's going to be a bit blowy, and if it is raining up there, it'll probably be sideways rain. You can clearly see that we are, from my place, if you were looking at this, halfway up to the high ground. You can clearly see we got Caradon there, sweeping around. You would have minions over the back of that, and there you've got the cheese ring and the actual quarry itself. But we have to make our way through this track, up through these fields, and into another woodland. It is pleasant, and I would have been quite happy, to be honest with you, to have done this walk in itself. But I have promised, I have said, and I'm committed. So we will see this to the end. Now that's Darley down there, and those houses, and in amongst that there is an old oak tree believed to be roughly around 1,000 years old. So I believe. I will have to check that out. But it is one of the oldest trees in the country. And indeed, people have, or should we say, I think Truro Cathedral has took oaks, and they've brought them on, and oaks have been planted from that tree, or acorns shall I say, to produce young trees, to hope that the lineage and the genes from that tree live on, because you can only imagine what that tree has and would have seen. But I believe it's 1,000 years old. I could be mistaken, but it's sort of a very, very ancient nature anyway. Worth checking out on the internet if you've got a spare 5 minutes, the Darley oak tree. I have just stopped at the gateway on the path into the village, and I've got clear view straight up to Sharp Tor. And you can probably get now, you can begin to see why it was called Sharp Tor. I'm going to zoom in closer so you can get a better perspective. There you can see it. It really is starting to live up to its name. And there it is again. Could be a bit blurry now, but you can get the general idea. In the book of the Southern Moors, Sharp Tor is described as the miniature Matterhorn. Now, people may be laughing at that, and it's been described by somebody from a very different time, but it definitely, even from here, does strike you as slightly imposing. We are now in the village of Henwood. Now Henwood sits directly underneath Sharp Tor, and you can hear that wind. It's really beginning to whistle. We will make our way through the village, and then it is literally, I don't know why I'm stuttering, perhaps it's the thought of where I'm going, but you can see the high ground up there. We do have to walk up the road, take a right onto the lanes, and make our way up to Sharp Tor. But it is all uphill, and serious uphill now. Yeah, the village of Henwood would have served the mining communities that existed around here, and yeah, they would have been tight-knit little places back in the time. Everybody would have known everybody, but that was just the way things were back then. And here we go. I'm actually feeling it already, but yeah, let's keep going.